They're not drinking protein shakes, they're not counting macros, they don't wear fitness watches or follow trendy diets, but they walk with strength. They carry their own groceries. They smile with clarity. In quiet corners of the world, on sun-drenched porches in Okinawa, in the misty hills of Sardinia or near the riverbanks of Nicoya, there are elders living lives that defy expectation. They rise early. They cook their own meals. And what they put on their plates is far more powerful than it seems. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, one of Japan's most beloved doctors, and a man who lived well past 100, believed that food should never dominate your day. He spoke often of simplicity, how the meals we eat should serve our purpose, not steal our peace. His breakfasts were not elaborate affairs. A slice of toast, a splash of olive oil, a small glass of orange juice. He lived not by chasing vitality, but by honoring rhythm, lightness, and consistency. Meals were moments, not events, and his body followed the quiet wisdom of that simplicity. In the blue zones studied by Dan Bietner, where people routinely live beyond 90 or even 100, food is not treated as a fix, but as a faithful companion. It isn't calculated or restricted. It's shared, it's seasonal, and above all, it's part of daily life in a way that doesn't ask for attention, but gives it. Whether it's beans simmering beside a wood stove or greens picked just before lunch, these foods carry decades of memory and meaning. They are not magical, they are not trendy, but they are reliable. And over time, they build strength the way a tree grows, slowly, deeply with roots. So many people over 60 are told what not to eat. Fewer are told what still works, what still nourishes, what still builds muscle, memory, and movement, without burdening the body. This isn't about restriction, it's about remembering. Remembering that real food still heals, that the body, even in its later seasons, still responds to care, that aging does not mean fading, but changing, maturing, deepening, finding new forms of strength. So today we won't talk about supplements or shortcuts. We won't list miracle foods or the latest studies that promise what they can't deliver. Instead, we'll return to what's quietly been working in Nicoya, in Okinawa, in Ikaria, for generations. Simple foods eaten daily, trusted by time, grounded in tradition, backed by science, and perhaps more importantly, lived and proven by people just like you, people who have loved, grieved, slowed down, and still kept walking. You don't need to change everything. You don't need to throw away what you know. But maybe, just maybe, there's one food in this story that your body has been waiting for. A taste that's familiar, a ritual that's easy, a strength that's not lost, just waiting to be fed. Let's begin. It's easy to believe that strength only comes from meat, that aging muscles, softening over time, need heavier meals, red meat, protein powders. But for many, especially after 60, that approach can feel more like a burden than a solution. The body changes, digestion slows, the kidneys tire. Inflammation becomes a quiet background noise in the joints, in the gut, in the mind. What once gave energy now leaves heaviness. What once felt nourishing now feels hard to process. But in some parts of the world, strength comes from something simpler, something slower, something humble. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, elders in their 70s and 80s eat black beans at nearly every meal, not as a side dish, not as a health trend, but as a staple, a friend, simmered with squash, paired with fresh corn, cooked slowly and eaten with presence. These aren't the muscular bodies of gyms, but the resilient bodies of people who still tend their gardens, carry water, climb steps without pain. Lentils and black beans carry something meat cannot always give at this age: gentle power. They're rich in magnesium, which helps relax stiff muscles and regulate sleep. Their protein is balanced with fiber, easing digestion instead of straining it. And they contain resistant starch, which quietly feeds the good bacteria in the gut. Bacteria that support immunity, brain health, and even mood. This kind of nourishment doesn't spike or crash. It sustains. It supports. It doesn't fight the body. It walks with it. The beauty of these beans is not just in what they offer, but in how they fit into daily life. Half a cup is enough. Add a drizzle of olive oil, a pinch of oregano or thyme, maybe a little garlic. Served at lunch, they steady blood sugar. They feed muscles in a way that feels kind. You don't need to reinvent your plate. Just invite in what has always worked. Because real food doesn't shout, it whispers. And in that quiet, something strong begins to grow again. Something that says, you can still rise from the chair without holding on. Something that says, you can still walk longer than yesterday. Something that says, your strength is not behind you. It's not just protein. It's peace for your gut and power for your legs. There was a time when fat became the enemy. Magazine covers, well-meaning doctors, and diet fads all shouted the same thing. Avoid fat to protect your heart. And so for many elders, it became habit to skip the oils, the fish, the foods once seen as hearty and healing. But over the years, something else happened quietly. Joints began to ache more. Memory started to slip. Muscles felt weaker. Not because of age alone, but because something essential was being left behind. The truth is, the right kind of fat doesn't harm the body. It holds it together, especially after 60 when the body becomes drier, more fragile, more prone to inflammation. Good fats become not a threat, but a balm. They cushion the joints, they protect the brain, they help rebuild what time gently wears away. And among all the sources of nourishing fat, one food stands out. Not for its glamour, but for its grace. Sardines in olive oil. Small, simple, easy to store. They are full of omega-3s, which reduce inflammation and support joint health. They offer vitamin D, which becomes harder to absorb as the years go by, and is essential for bone strength and immune function. They provide calcium, especially when eaten with the soft bones, and vitamin B12, which protects the nerves that help muscles move and react. For older adults, these are not just nutrients, they're lifelines. In Japan, elders often eat sardines with boiled potatoes and a splash of lemon. It's not a diet, it's not a trend. It's a quiet tradition, rich, practical, and healing. 2 or 3 sardines, 3 times a week. Enough to nourish, never to overwhelm. Drained lightly, paired with bitter greens or warm vegetables, they become a gentle, complete meal. Perfect after a walk. Soothing on a tired day. Strengthening on a cold morning. This isn't the fat of excess. This is the fat of function. The kind that keeps the hands from stiffening, the knees from locking, the mind from fogging. The kind of fat the body recognizes as familiar, helpful, and kind. The kind of fat our ancestors knew before we forgot. Sardines may not look like much, but they carry what the body craves after a certain age. Support, softness, protection. Not a big change, just a quiet return. It's brain food, joint oil, muscle medicine, all in one quiet little fish. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep. It settles in the legs, in the chest, in the breath. A heaviness that appears while climbing stairs, walking to the mailbox, or simply standing too long by the sink. For many older adults, this fatigue isn't from doing too much, but from not being fed enough of the right kind of fuel. Not the fast, sugary energy that crashes, and not the heavy, greasy meals that weigh down the stomach, but a slow, steady fire. A root that grounds instead of overwhelms. That root for generations has been the sweet potato, especially the purple or orange kind. Rich, fibrous, full of potassium and natural sugars that digest gently. In Okinawa, the original blue zone, sweet potatoes were once the primary food, making up nearly 67% of daily calories. Not because they were fashionable, but because they worked. Elders in their 80s and 90s would still tend to gardens, care for grandchildren, and walk long distances. Their strength didn't come from supplements. It came from the earth, from what grew beneath their feet. The sweet potato offers something unique. It gives glucose slowly without spikes. It calms digestion with its fiber. It supports heart rhythm with potassium. And more than anything, it gives a deep sense of warmth, not just in the body but in the memory. The scent of it roasting, the softness when bitten, the comfort of something that has always been part of home. In later years, when the appetite fades and the body feels fragile, food must be both nourishment and reassurance. A wedge of roasted sweet potato with cinnamon or rosemary, paired with a boiled egg or a spoon of kefir. Not much, just enough to bring life back to the legs, clarity to the head, stability to the emotions. It's easy to overlook foods that don't promise fast results. But healing doesn't rush, it roots. Like a potato in the ground, gaining sweetness with time, gaining power with stillness. That's the kind of energy the body needs now. Not intensity, but depth. Not speed, but steadiness. Like good soil under your feet. It keeps you grounded, fueled, and balanced. There's a silence in the body that's often ignored. The silence of digestion no longer working as it once did. It doesn't scream. It doesn't call attention like a sprained ankle or a pounding headache. It whispers, a little more bloating after meals, a little less hunger in the morning, a fog that hangs behind the eyes, not from sadness but from stagnation deep within. And with time, this quiet slowdown affects everything: energy, mood, sleep, and even memory. In traditional households, especially among elders in the Mediterranean or the hills of Japan, there's always been a place on the plate for something bitter. Not bitter in punishment, bitter in healing. Dandelion greens, arugula, mustard leaves, cooked softly with olive oil and garlic. Not chewed in a hurry, but eaten with intention. These greens aren't a side dish. They are medicine. Gentle, subtle, true. These leaves are rich in folate, which supports brain clarity. They offer calcium, which strengthens bones from within. But their greatest gift is invisible. They wake the liver. They support bile flow. They help the body digest, eliminate, and renew. When digestion flows, energy rises. When the gut is cared for, the mind begins to sharpen. And when the body feels lighter inside, movement becomes easier outside. It's all connected. One handful is enough, lightly sautéed. Maybe a sprinkle of lemon, maybe not. They don't need seasoning to offer their benefit. They work quietly, like a wise elder in the room. Never the loudest, but always the most essential. Especially when age has slowed appetite or when meals have become more about survival than satisfaction, these greens bring a touch of care that the body still longs for. They are not glamorous. They are not sold in shiny packages, but they have remained through centuries because they work, not through force but through restoration. They don't cleanse the body with violence. They restore it with balance. They don't burn. They soothe. Greens aren't for dieting. They're for steady strength from the inside out. Strength in these later years is often misunderstood. People think of it as something grand, something you either have or have lost. But real strength, the kind that lasts, doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive in loud moments or dramatic changes. It's built slowly, patiently, with care. It's built in the quiet hours of the morning when you choose to prepare something warm instead of skipping breakfast. In the steady rhythm of meals that don't overwhelm but support. In the kind of food that doesn't just feed hunger, but reminds the body that it is still alive, still needed, still capable. There's a quiet dignity in the way some elders nourish themselves. Not out of fear, not chasing youth, but as a way of honoring their days. The kind of dignity you see in a man who still slices his own sweet potato each morning, or in a woman who rinses greens in the sink, her fingers slower now, but still certain. These daily gestures don't make headlines, but they hold everything together. They are the backbone of health that doesn't seek attention. Those who've observed the long-lived elders of Okinawa, Sardinia, and Nicoya often notice something unremarkable at first glance. The meals are not complicated. There are no powders or pills. There is no counting, tracking, or worrying. Just food, real, seasonal, humble. It's not that these people never face pain or illness. They do, but they move through it with bodies that have been gently supported for decades, not pushed or punished. Their food gives them what they need without taking away peace, digestion, or rest. In Okinawa, meals often begin with color: purple sweet potatoes, soft and warm, miso soup with seaweed, a few pieces of fish, some lightly fermented vegetables. It is not a feast. It is a ritual. There's gratitude in the slowness. There's strength in the smallness. The elders there still walk, still gather, still care for grandchildren, not because they are trying to defy time, but because they are living in rhythm with it. The same is true in Costa Rica's Nicoya Peninsula, where a midday plate of beans, squash, and tortillas is eaten without hurry, where people still work with their hands well into their 70s and 80s. The black beans are rich in protein, yes, but more importantly, they are familiar, comforting. They are part of a routine that nourishes not just the body, but the spirit. In these places, food isn't separated from life. It isn't treated like medicine, nor entertainment. It's part of something larger. It is care, embodied. And that's the lesson we often miss when we chase trends or wait for someone else to fix what has quietly unraveled. The body doesn't ask for miracles. It asks for consistency, for warmth, for rest, for foods that it recognizes as safe and good. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived to be 105, spoke often of the simplicity of meals. His daily habits weren't glamorous. Toast, olive oil, orange juice. He didn't believe in stuffing the stomach. He believed in giving the body just enough, just what it needs to continue, to create, to feel light. That kind of thinking, that gentle approach to food is often lost in a world obsessed with more. But the truth is, aging doesn't require more. It requires better rhythms, better choices, better care. It's easy to forget this when energy runs low, when the back aches just from reaching the top shelf, when memory feels like it's slipping through your fingers, and when loneliness sets in, the kind that isn't always loud but settles into the bones. It's tempting to reach for something fast, something easy. But easy doesn't always mean kind. Fast doesn't always mean helpful. That's why the foods we've spoken about, beans, sardines, sweet potatoes, bitter greens, matter so deeply. Not because they promise transformation, but because they offer something more trustworthy, something you can come back to. They are not glamorous, they are not exciting, but they are true. They do their work quietly. They build the kind of strength that isn't about lifting weights, but lifting yourself from the armchair without fear. The kind of clarity that helps you remember names, follow conversations, find your keys. The kind of resilience that allows you to walk just a bit further than you did last week. These foods don't ask for perfection. They ask for presence, for a return to what the body has always needed. Not more products, not more restrictions, but more attention. A little more olive oil, a few more greens, a slice of sweet potato instead of a slice of doubt. And even if you've gone years without these habits, it's not too late. The body is always listening. It doesn't hold grudges. It responds to care, no matter when that care begins. One thoughtful meal can shift the way you feel for hours. A few days of steady nourishment can soften the stiffness in your joints. A week of feeding the gut with real food can bring your energy back in ways no pill ever has. There's a strength in your body that hasn't left. It may be buried, it may be quiet, but it's still there, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be fed. And the way to reach it isn't through drastic change, but through gentle return. Return to rhythm. Return to the foods your ancestors might recognize. Return to the table as a place of restoration. Let strength come back not through pressure or force, but through kindness, through consistency, through the quiet power of nourishment that meets you exactly where you are. You don't need to do everything, you just need to begin. Not with a plan, not with a promise, but with a plate. One quiet meal, one moment of care that says you are still here and you still matter.